Ms. Rosalind Brewer.
Present.
Dr. Helene Gale.
Present.
Mr. Patrick Gaspard.
Present.
Mr. C.D. Glenn.
Present.
Mr. Osagi Imasogi.
Present.
Ms. Almaz Nagash.
Present.
Ms. Chini Ogumike.
Present.
Mr. Ham Saranjogi.
Present.
Mr. Kevin Young.
Present.
Thank you. We have 11 council members present for this meeting. Ms. Fowler Davis regrettably could not be here with us today, but let the record note that the Department of State administered her oath on October 27th, and her commitment is duly recorded. Now, as we look forward to the work that lies ahead, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce a distinguished leader, a tireless champion of diplomacy, and a U.S. Senator who has been a steadfast advocate for stronger U.S.-Africa relations, Senator Christopher Coons of Delaware, to deliver opening remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It is such a blessing to have the opportunity to briefly speak at the opening of what is an incredibly important day. Bishop, I hope I can say, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Can I get an amen? Thank you, Bishop. You are an incredible dozen leaders from across our nation, folks who show with the remarkable arcs of your careers, your contributions, your accomplishments, exactly what is possible in this nation. As we all know, there would be no America without African Americans. There would be no accomplishments. There would be no culture. There would be no tragedy. There would be no glory. There would be no soul. And that deserves a round of applause. Kevin, as the museum, you have played such a central role in curating and leading teaches all of us. African American history is American history, and the future of African Americans and the African diaspora today in America is the future of our nation. There is no more important continent for the 21st century than Africa. We are uniquely positioned to help with our history, with our strengths, with our skills, to engage with, connect with, and help lead the connections between the United States and Africa for too long neglected. So let me just simply say how excited I am that this commitment made in the President's Summit last December is now fully made. I suspect the reason I've been given the privilege of 2 minutes at the podium is I'm the guy who's going to have to figure out how to sign the check when this all moves forward. We've all heard of the Divine Nine. I think you are the disciple dozen. I think you are the diaspora disciple dozen who, like the disciples, will question and challenge, will test and demand, will hope and believe, and will take forward from this place from today a vision that says we know that America is greater and stronger when it recognizes, embraces, and builds on the roots of African Americans, on the promise of this moment with Africa, and when we see forward the possibilities that our Secretary of State has laid out so clearly. When the Congresswoman and I had a chance to travel with the Vice President to Ghana just a few months ago, it seems like a few days ago, I got to see my former Senate colleague in her glory. Maybe it was because she was away from the challenges and the daily pressures of DC. Maybe it was because there was a profound sense of being home. Maybe it was just because of the place and the moment. But I have never seen our Vice President more engaged, more excited, more energized. And I know that from today's comments from our Secretary and our Vice President, from your dialogue with each other, and from the boundless possibilities that you will help us chart, that this diaspora disciple dozen will open a critical next chapter in our nation's future. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Chris, always wonderful to be with you, but especially on this day with this group on this occasion. Senator Coons has been extraordinary in his devotion to Africa and his devotion to the relationship, the partnership between the United States and Africa, a matter of principled leadership for many years and an incredible partner. And of course, we always say, blessed be the check writers. Denise, to you, my great thanks. And to an incredible team, Molly Fee, Judd Evermont, our colleagues from the State Department, the National Security Council staff, who've done so much to bring this council to life today. And I also want to very much acknowledge the work of another extraordinary diplomat who I've had the privilege of working with and learning from for many years, Ambassador Johnny Carson, who helped share his unmatched expertise. Thank you. Unmatched expertise and passion for driving U.S. engagement with Africa. At the State Department, when we say, here's Johnny, this is what we mean. And to our new members, to their families, welcome. This is a day we've been looking forward to for some time. And it is both an honor and a privilege and a joy to be part of the inaugural meeting of the President's Advisory Council on African Diaspora Engagement. Last year in Pretoria, I had an opportunity to lay out our strategy for sub-Saharan Africa. It spells out shared priorities across the continent, how we intend to promote transparent, accountable government, to strengthen security, to create broad-based economic opportunity, to build climate resilience, food security, and so much more. And at the heart of this blueprint is partnership. It's about what the United States can do with African nations, not for African nations. And that's because on every issue of consequence to the region, our progress depends on working together as equal partners. That means strengthening our relationships between our governments, between the private sector, between our civil societies. And it means strengthening engagement with Africa's dynamic diaspora here in the United States, the descendants of formerly enslaved people and the nearly 2 million African immigrants who maintain extraordinary close ties to their home countries. Now, I've had the chance to spend some time with this incredibly vibrant community myself, here as well as in Africa. That includes sitting down with a younger generation, young leaders who are creating jobs for young people in the United States and in African nations, training American nonprofits in techniques learned from fighting infectious diseases in Malawi to so much more. What's clear is how profoundly this diaspora has shaped societies on not one, but on 2 continents. Just last week, in fact, President Biden awarded the National Science Medal to Gabisa Ejeta, an Ethiopian-American plant geneticist whose research is helping literally millions of people grow crops that can withstand extreme temperatures that we're increasingly seeing. The significance, the promise of the African diaspora is so great that the African Union actually recognized it as the continent's 6th region. We want to further empower and amplify that immense potential. That's why at last year's African Leaders Summit, President Biden created the Advisory Council to give us advice, recommendations on how we can better strengthen ties between the people of African countries and the people of the United States. In the months since the summit, the White House, the State Department have consulted stakeholders. We've considered more than 100 candidates, and ultimately, we asked the 12, as I think you're quickly becoming known, to serve in this vital role. Now, no single group can capture the diversity, the vitality of the African diaspora, but this is a pretty remarkable collection of leaders. You all hail from 9 U.S. states with roots stretching back to more than half a dozen African countries. You come from the worlds of business, higher education, the faith community, the nonprofit sector. We have a former ambassador to South Africa, a 2-time WNBA All-Star. We even have an EGOT winner. So now Viola Davis can add advisory council member to the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, the Tony Award. And I know which one will get pride of place on the mantelpiece. And because this is an initiative that President Biden launched, it seems very fitting that our council chairman is from the state of Delaware. In the coming months, we will be looking to each of you as a source of innovative ideas. This group is a platform for meaningful dialogue and a bridge to strengthen connections between the United States and the African diaspora. And that's especially true as we continue to deliver on the commitments that we made at the Leaders Summit. Ambassador Carson's been following up on these commitments. That's why President Biden asked him to take on a role immediately after the summit to make sure that while we had 3 incredible days with our colleagues from Africa here in Washington, it's the 362 days that follow that really make a difference. Are we making good on what we said we would do? And that is vitally important to keeping faith with the summit and keeping faith with our partners around the world. We're going to solicit your ideas on ways that we can get more diaspora members involved in trade and investment, in development, all related to Africa, to improve everything from deploying clean energy to expanding digital access across the continent. We'll consult on how to strengthen ties through educational exchanges like the Young Africa Leaders Initiative and International Visitor Leadership Program, 2 of really the flagship programs that we've had, one dating back many years in the State Department, another to the Obama Biden administration, but both incredibly vital for making these connections, creating these connections, and building new networks among our people that will carry us forward for many years to come. And we'll explore ways to further cultural connections across sports, across television, across music, across fashion. We'll seek your partnership in further advancing equity and opportunity for the diaspora community, including through the UN Development Forum on People of African Descent. Strengthening equity is a key focus of the State Department's own Equity Action Plan. And if I can make maybe just a small recruiting pitch, the African diaspora has brought so much to our own diplomacy over so many years. One of the things we'll ask you to do is to see if you can help bring more of this incredible talent to bear at the State Department itself. We are on a recruiting mission. We want the best people for our diplomacy, and we want a department that actually reflects the country that it represents. This isn't just a matter of doing the right thing, it's doing the smart thing. We're operating in an incredibly diverse world at a time where there's a greater multiplicity and complexity of challenges than ever before, certainly in the 30 years that I've been involved in this. The greatest advantage we have in operating in that world, the greatest advantage we have in actually advancing American values and American interests is our own diversity. And so if we're shortchanging ourselves by leaving that diversity off the team and off the playing field, it's not right and it's not good for America. So we're going to look to you to see if you can help us recruit some new talent. Now, many of you have spoken powerfully about how having a connection to this country and to one in Africa gives you the best of both worlds. Each of you carries those worlds within you. And with this council, advising our government's efforts, we hope you'll help us bring out the best in both African countries and in our own. Now, to administer the oath, it is my honor to introduce a leader who has been day in, day out, shaping our nation's foreign policy. Someone who personally understands the strength of this community. A woman who received, I think it's fair to say, a rock star welcome when she visited the continent this past April. And a woman who is the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris.
Good afternoon. Please have a seat. Good afternoon. Well, let me start by, where is Senator Coons? There you are. Can I tell a little story about you? So, as you heard from Secretary Blinken and from the Senator himself about his commitment to the continent, longstanding, and his passion, and I think you heard that he joined me when we took a trip to the continent in March of this year to do some very important work, and in particular, you joined me in Ghana, and then the Senator actually met with a number of Ghanaian officials to reinforce the position that the President and I and Secretary Blinken have taken in terms of strengthening the relationship with African leaders in the various countries. And then the head of the state, the President of Ghana, wanted to host a state dinner in honor of my trip. And it was a black tie event. And Senator Coons showed up wearing a kente cloth bow tie and kente cloth cummerbund, and just absolutely just had everyone in utter amazement and appreciation. So that is my story, just to highlight the commitment. You look quite handsome, Senator. But thank you, because the work that you do in the Senate, and I, as a previous member of the United States Senate, have seen firsthand, Chris, what you do and how passionately you speak on behalf of the importance of the relationship between the United States and the continent of Africa. So thank you for all that you are and do. Secretary Blinken, we have been spending a lot of time together, and I will just mention what I said at the state luncheon that we had this past week. We have in Secretary Blinken an extraordinary individual who has been tireless in the work he does to represent the values and the principles of our country around the world, but the way that he does it also by actually understanding, as our president talks about so often, the best way that we can reinforce these friendships is by being present, being there. And so the commitment and the stamina, Secretary Blinken, that you have been showing to this work, especially at this critical time in our world, is extraordinary. And so can we please applaud Secretary Blinken? Ambassador, it is good to see you. Thank you for all that you do, and to the members of Congress, to everyone who is here. I'll just speak briefly, but I do want to say that on behalf of the President and our administration, we are so excited about the convening of this council. We've been looking forward to it for quite some time. And so this inaugural meeting is really a celebration and an appreciation of who each of you is in terms of what you have done and the commitment you have made to the work ahead. And we do know that we are existing in a world where long settled stability and principles that we thought and took for granted for so long are now all in question. And the work that we do on behalf of the United States to show our interest, our sincere interest in partnership, in understanding mutual connections, in studying history and seeing the alignment and the symmetry where it exists, is critically important to reinforcing relationships and our democratic principles. And so the work of this council will be an extension of all of that. The work of this council I'm so excited about is also the work of in some ways, reintroducing ourselves as the United States to the continent in a way that the President and I, Secretary, and so many of us really think of it. The trip that we took in March, I was so excited about. Understanding that the median age on the continent is 19. 19. 1 in 4 people who inhabit a place on Mother Earth by 2050 will be on the continent of Africa. When we combine those two facts and then think about the historical connections and the strength of the diaspora, the African diaspora, and thinking about all that in the context of what an investment now in relationships, in the connection, can mean to the future, not only of the continent, but our country and the world. The potential here is profound. And I know our enthusiasm and optimism about that potential equals what we know to be the expanse of the work that we can do. And so this inaugural meeting is really the beginning of the next phase of our commitment as the United States of America to the continent, to all of the nations on the continent, and how we can strengthen those relationships. As evidence of that, the trip that we took in March was about meeting with young entrepreneurs, farmers, leaders in agriculture. Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Congressperson. Uh, meeting with farmers, meeting with women entrepreneurs, meeting with young people who are engaged in technology, and they are incredible in terms of their innovation around a clean energy economy. Thinking about the role and the responsibility that we have as the United States that is not only about aid, but is about partnership. Not what we can do for the continent, but what we can do with. What we can do to link up leaders in a way that we maximize our vision for the future and the potential for the globe. That's how we're thinking about this council. In fact, in that trip, I was proud to pull together some of the leaders in our private sector for an investment already in the continent of $8 billion, focused mostly on women, focused on digital inclusion, as just the beginning of the work we have yet to do. So all of that to say, on behalf of the President and our administration, we are incredibly enthusiastic about the work ahead, knowing that it really is about partnership, it is about shared history, it is about speaking truth, always, in a way that can guide us toward where we need to go next. So with all of that, I thank everyone here, and I am now going to administer this oath. So I will ask all of the members of the council to stand and raise your right hand, please, and then repeat after me. Well, I'm going to say I. You can say I and then state your own name. Okay. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations, members.
Thank you.